Welcome back to class. In each week's lecture videos, I will briefly summarize the required reading for the week. So please listen to this lecture after you read chapters 3, 4, and 5. Chapter 3 talks about how to select and define target behaviors. We as practitioners want to improve students' and clients' socially important behavior that has immediate and long-lasting meaning for the person and for those who interact with that person consistently. Therefore, before we teach, we will select important target behavior for the individuals. But to figure out what is important to the individual, we need some assessment to figure out the person's strengths and weaknesses across developmental domains. There are four major methods for obtaining assessment information. Those are interviews, checklist, test, and direct observation. Interview and checklist are indirect assessment because the data obtained from these measures are derived from recollections, reconstructions, or subjective ratings of events. Tests and direct observation are considered direct assessment approaches because they provide information about a person's behavior as it occurs. Among those four effective data collection methods, we are going to talk about direct observation today. Direct and repeated observations of students' behavior in the natural environment are the most preferred methods for determining which behaviors to target for change. A basic form of direct continuous observation is called anecdotal observation or called ABC recording. So this is the ABC analysis. We will see what happened before the behavior, what happened after the behavior. And by having this ABC observation, you will figure out the patterns. The patterns provides information regarding typical antecedents to the behavior, typical consequences for behavior, and the result of those consequences on behavior. This is the example of ABC analysis. This teacher records George's behavior, and the target behavior includes humming loudly, telling an inappropriate joke, and blah blah blah. After you set the target behavior like this teacher, whenever your target behavior happened, you will record the antecedent, what happened right before the behavior, and what happened right after the behavior. And you can also identify possible function of the target behavior as well. So you will have multiple ABC observations to figure out the possible function of these target behaviors. Again, we want to improve students or clients' socially important behavior that has immediate and long-lasting meaning for the person and for those who interact with the person. Therefore, target behaviors in applied behavior analysis must be socially significant behavior that will increase the person's habilitation. Habilitation is a new term for us, but this term is quite frequently used by applied behavior researchers when they set target behaviors or when they measure the meaningfulness of behavior change. So habilitation refers to the degree to which a person's behavior repertoire maximizes short and long-term reinforcers and minimizes short and long-term punishers. It's also known as adjustment or competence. Judgments about how much a particular behavior change will contribute to a person's overall habilitation are difficult to make, but we generally consider several things to judge social significance and habilitation value. For example, when we plan to teach new behavior, we can consider if the potential target behaviors are age appropriate or not. Because for a 21 years old woman, we do not want to teach basic play skills like toy play, right? We want to consider more age appropriate and functional behaviors for those age groups. Once we have the list of eligible target behavior, we have to make decisions about their relative priority. So by asking these 9 questions, you will be able to figure out which target behavior you can focus on first and the next. So from your textbook, there are 9 questions you can ask. Does this behavior pose any danger to the client or the other? How many opportunity will the person have to use this new behavior, or how often does this problem behavior occur? Number 3, how long standing is the problem or skill deficit? Number 4, will changing this behavior produce higher rates or reinforcement for the person? Number 5, what will be the relative importance of this target behavior to future skill development and independent functioning? Number 6, will changing this behavior reduce negative or unwanted attention from others? Number 7, will this new behavior produce reinforcement for significant others? Number 8, how likely is success in changing these target behaviors? Number 9, how much will it cost to change this behavior? By answering these 9 questions, you can kind of feel that which behavior is more urgent. So you can focus on those behaviors. Now we have to define the target behavior. Well-written definition of target behavior are very important. Your target behavior must be observable, measurable, and replicable. So when other people see your target behavior, your defined target behavior, they should have the same understanding as you have. A good definition of a target behavior provides an accurate, complete, and concise description of the behavior to be changed. It also states what is not included in the behavior definition. So when you set your target behavior, when you define your target behavior, you must consider these 5 elements. Now, once you set your target behaviors, you should consider how to measure those behaviors because we want to know if there will be progress in your students' target behavior after you deliver some interventions, right? According to your text, the definition of measurement is a process of applying quantitative labels to observed properties of events using a standard set of rules. So we will measure the behavior, we will quantify the behavior change so we can see the behavior progress. Applied behavior researchers need to know about measurement, how to measure the behavior change effectively, but in real life, practitioners need to know about measurement because behavioral practitioners like you, teachers or therapists, are dedicated to improving the lives of the clients or students they serve by changing socially significant behaviors, right? So, by learning and knowing about measurement, practitioners will be able to find effective intervention strategies for their clients or students, especially they can use evidence-based intervention strategies. And they will have eyes to determine the effectiveness and validity of specific intervention strategy by looking at previous intervention data produced by different people. So practitioners can be more ethical and cautious when they choose and when they deliver interventions. Behavior has features that can be measured, and because behavior occurs within and across time, it has 3 fundamental properties or called dimensional quantities. So behavior analysis can measure behavior. The first property is repeatability or called accountability, meaning it instance of a response class can occur repeatedly through time, so behavior can be counted. A response class means a group of responses of varying forms, all of which produce the same effect on the environment. Example, to greet other people, I can wave my hand or I can say hi. Waving hand, waving a hand and saying hi, these two behavior look different, but they have same function, right? To greet other people. So these two behavior, waving a hand and saying hi, although those two forms look different, they're in uh, they're in a same response class because they have same function. So that's the definition of response class. The second property is temporal extent, meaning every instance of behavior occurs during some amount of time. So the duration of behavior can be measured. Third property is temporal locus, meaning every instance of behavior occurs at a certain point in time with respect to other events. So when behavior occurs can be measured. Due to these properties, we can measure behavior and we can record data. So I believe you probably learn about these data collection methods in SPED 514. So I will just briefly go over some of the methods you must know. So the first one is frequency. Frequency is the number of time a behavior occurs within a specified period. So it's very simple. You can just use tally marks and count the frequency. Rate, this one still use the frequency. However, you can use rate when your observation time vary across sessions. For example, you have 10 minutes today, so you can observe your student for 10 minutes today, next day 20 minutes, the day after you can just have 5 minutes. Then when your observation time vary across sessions, then you can use rate. So your the frequency, the number of behavior occurred, will be divided by time. So when you report your data, you can say 3 times per minute or 5 times in 10 minutes. So you can use this kind of form to report your rate data. Percentage is a little bit different. You can use it when the amount of time is always the same, but the number of opportunities in the specific time vary. So you count both the number of responses and the number of opportunity, and you will divide it. So you will divide the number of behavior occurred into the number of opportunity. Duration is easy. Duration is the length of time a behavior occurs within a specified time. So you will report the occurrence was 3 minutes, 4 minutes, or 20 seconds. It's easy. Latency is also easy and similar to duration. Latency is the length of the time between the presentation of SD and the initiation of behavior. So you can use this when you have a student who is reluctant to do something, reluctant to initiate behaviors, then you can use it and you can record the time. Interval recording is also very popular. It has 3 types: whole interval, partial interval, and time sampling. To use interval recording system, you will divide in observation time into short and equal intervals, and the occurrence of behavior within each interval is recorded. Let's say your observation time is 5 minutes and you decide to use 10-second interval, then you will divide the observation time into the 10-second interval. So each minute you will have 6 interval multiplied by 5 minutes. So you will have 30 interval total. If you use whole interval, you will record whether a behavior occurs continuously within the 10-second interval. So you will see behavior continuously occurs within the 10 second and you will mark as occurrence. Partial interval, you will record whether a behavior occurs at any time within the 10-second interval. Doesn't matter how long, you will just see if the behavior occurs or not within the specified interval. Momentary time sampling is little different. You will use bigger interval like 2-minute interval or 5-minute interval or 10-minute interval. You should set timer, and whenever timer goes off, you will look up and see if the student is doing the target behavior at that moment. So it's really good and it's really convenient for busy teachers because they don't have to look at the child's whole time, right? Well, behavior can also be defined or measured by its form and intensity. Topography is the physical form or shapes of behavior. Sometimes you have to describe how the behavior looks like. That's the topography. Magnitude, this is the intensity of a behavior. Although it's not a fundamental quality of behavior, sometimes it's considered important. For example, when you are focusing on students' voice volume, like to increase or decrease the voice volume, then you can use this dimension to measure behavior change. Permanent product is another data collection method you can consider. You will measure behavior after it has occurred by measuring its effects on the environment. So easiest example I can give you includes assignments or art activity, artwork. So after your students completed assignments or art activity, you will just see how they completed or how well they completed. So you will check their completions or their quality of work. So you don't have to observe your student whole time while they're engaging in those activities, but you will just check the completions or the quality of work they completed. Now I have to introduce a new term. It's procedural integrity, also called treatment integrity, intervention fidelity, or intervention reliability. Sometimes researchers or teachers they collect data on their independent variable, means interventions, because they want to make sure that they implement the intervention procedures correctly and thoroughly. So sometimes they created a list of intervention, like steps of intervention, and whenever they implement intervention by steps, they check, they mark on the list after they implement each step. So they want to make sure that they implement each step correctly in each day. So that's called procedure integrity, because they want to make sure that they deliver the intervention with high fidelity, correctly and thoroughly.